And so part of the reason you need at least an annual budget is you need to be able to plan for a year or more possibly of work from community members who will have bills to pay. They actually need money to pay their rent, to pay their developers, things of that nature. And so they want to sign a contract that says they're going to do a certain amount of work in a certain amount of time and get a certain amount of money from that. So the proposal that we have is that there will be a treasury withdrawal that will be a large enough sum to cover that work for at least some period of time. The current thinking is two treasury withdrawals this year that would cover most of it, all of the needs, and using what Lawrence terms the financial whip, the financial work in progress that actually performs the need of keeping enough money, fiat money in the bank to pay all the bills as they're coming in. So that should be my time on that. So hopefully that will help give you some clarity there, Daniel.
Did you mention it in this telegram?
I'm going to recognize Ubio from Lagos, Nigeria.
Wonderful, thank you.
All right, thank you, Mercy. Okay, so my concern in Article 4, Section 1, says the Cardano committee is expected to propose not less than on an annual basis a budget for the ongoing operations, just keep going, right? So, with this comes an underlying tone that one, Cardano does have a budget year, and if we do have, what is that? We have a budget period, and what is this budget period? And every organization, so the assumption that 2015 necessarily, 2025 is a budget year is not necessarily true in most organizations, because most organizations have their own budget year, when it starts and when it ends. So this constitution somehow comes with that notion that we do have a budget year, and if there is, maybe it should also come into the constitution for us to know when it starts and when it ends. Because just saying on an annual basis doesn't, is too vague, right? So that's my first concern in that. The second one is in Section 2 when it says the Cardano blockchain, after the statement 2, it says the Cardano blockchain budget shall specify a process for overseeing use of funds from Cardano blockchain treasury. Who is Cardano blockchain budget? That definition is not clear. And again, I think that again brings back the whole issue about how all of this is interoperable with the issue of definitions. Because if we go by what we see in the appendix of what Cardano blockchain is, then that is not a person, it's about smart contracts, and I'm trying to know how smart contracts will just specify a process for us. I think we need clarity on these issues.
Thank you so much, Miguel. All right, I believe I can recognize Joel on this item.
Thank you. Just to clarify the intent of Section 1, it's hoped for that there will be at least a budget on an annual basis. However, it does not preclude at all having shorter budgets or frequent budgets, amending budgets. All of that is not included by Section 1. The intent of that section is to make sure that not at least on an annual basis there is a budget, so that we don't run into a situation where there is funding needed to maintain and keep the blockchain going, but there is no budget at all in effect to allow withdrawals from the treasury for that purpose. So it is encouraged to have it as standard, but the community can decide how it wants to do it, whether it wants multiple budgets, whether it wants budgets that are quarterly. It's all up to you. As to the other point, the article that talks about the role of the Constitutional Committee talks about how proposals with respect to budgets and withdrawals go through a process of being confirmed to be constitutional, so that the budget can be implemented on chain, or so that a treasury withdrawal can be implemented on chain. So we're talking here about the process of proposing budgets, and then a separate provision of the Constitution talks about the process of verifying the constitutionality of budgets as implemented and treasury withdrawals together.
Thank you, Joe.
John, an addition, as far as I understand, is he was wondering what is it April to April the following year, or is it January to December?
The Constitution doesn't.
That was the question.
The Constitution doesn't
Clarify
specify
that.
Okay. No, it doesn't. The Constitution doesn't specify it. It's up to the community to decide how they want to do this. And so they have flexibility to do budgets on the calendar year, to do it on some other basis. It's really up to the community.
Thank you, Joe. And thank you, Mercy. Mercy, do you have additional commentary or concerns in Nairobi?
I think we are done. Somebody voted no, that hasn't spoken up, but I think they are good so far with what's going on. So yes, we'll hand it back to you, Lloyd.
Thank you, Mercy. And again, as we get coming back into the room here, remember, if your concerns already been addressed, let's please move on. But if you have an additional new concern, I am happy to recognize each of you and make this move forward. I've seen Lucas stand up for quite a while, so I'm going to give Luca the first opportunity here. And then I'm going to move to Patrick as the next.
Hello, Luca here from Vienna. I think overall it's good that some things have been added, but I think it's still unclear how funds are allocated and overseen. I think we need clear rules to ensure decisions are transparent and fair. And then I also noted down that I think the budget for operations has to be defined more. It should be as narrow in scope as possible, that it's more keeping the lights on and nothing more. And that we should also include that it's operation first and opportunity second. So anything else should be also mentioned as something second.
Thank you for your feedback. We're going to go to Patrick, then we're going to go to William, and then we'll come to Jose. Patrick.
Hey, thank you. So we're building a decentralized governance, right? So what I'm wondering is, why are we introducing any centralization vector by, requiring one of our administrators who are responsible for the oversight of the whole budget process? I think this could be handled and should be handled completely decentralized via smart contracts.
Hello, thank you. I have 3 points. I think they're separate from what's been mentioned before. The first is, well, it's all in section 1 of Article 4. So the first is that the Cardano community is expected to propose, and then stop there. What is the threshold for this proposal, and can we make it more clear and explicit in the text? That's my first point.
I can answer that one, that is in the guardrails, and there's a 51% majority required of the info action for it to pass. That's in the guardrails.
I appreciate that, thank you.
Sure.
It's been asked of me to suggest that we make it more clear and directly in the body. My second question or point is that these few words later where it says not less than on an annual basis. So not less than could actually be interpreted either way. So it could be that it could be more frequently than once per year, or it could be that the budget could be multiple years. I think it's just a little bit ambiguous because of there's multiple things that have a measurable size or length of time. Anyway, so the third point is the ongoing operation, maintenance, and future development. So operation is already covered by the SPOs, and it's been suggested that the budget is not particularly necessary for the operation of the network. Thank you.
See, thank you. All right. What do we have to say next? Yes.
So I have a couple of concerns when it comes to the budget process outside of the Constitution once the money is received by the non-elected holdings. There's currently no community elected board member or board seat of that holdings. The other concern is that there's nothing stated within the Constitution preventing that entity or intercept from using the money to vote or to prevent them from saving that and using that money. And how does that affect, the statement more says received and was thinking the $500. So $500 money is.
So to address that first, that that's not in the purview of the Constitution at all, right? The Constitution doesn't have any entities in it whatsoever, so that's not the purview of the Constitution. That is actually external. You're talking about the intercept process, which became confused with Article 4. So we have to keep our comments to Article 4 for now, okay? So do you have, is it Article 4? Is it Article 4? Yes. Then yes, you can
So it stated that Treasury shall require an allocation of data as part of funding requests to cover costs of periodic and independent audits. I feel like we should add that it should be done by third-party auditors that I know there's third-party auditors that are defined by the community.
And we'll ask that you please hold your applause just so we can keep moving to the next verse because there are multiple folks who want to speak.
Thank you. Sonori, delegate for the Geneva Convention. I just want to get some clarification on the context on why the word operations added, because that wasn't discussed really, and that would be great to hear what the rationale behind it, because as someone else mentioned, the state operators already are compensated for operating the network, and it says blockchain specifically around the ecosystem. So that question, and that word opens it up to broad interpretations, I think is dangerous. I just would like clarity on why that word was added without us really discussing.
Thank you, Nori. I'm going to turn it over to recognize Joel.
So there was a lot of input and suggestions from the Cardano Foundation, including the draft of the Constitution the Foundation proposed. In particular, they talked to a lot of delegates about the budget process and asked us to look at their draft of the Constitution. Their draft of the Constitution included operations, and the urging of the foundation and other delegates, we took their language and put it into our version. Right? It doesn't mean that you can't decide to take it out. It's your call. But that's history of how it got there.
There was Lucas. Lucas still right there. 1, 2, 3, right here.
Hello, I'm Lucas, delegate from Buenos Aires, together with Jose. I have some topics on the budget usage rules. Although I understand we don't have an administrator and so forth, sometimes we need to be pragmatic about how we use the funds. I'd like to tackle some topics either to be considered as future workstream or even to be considered today. For example, how are we dealing with the treasury as a whole, right? How are we managing fiscal responsibility? Like, is there any preference for one large withdrawal, or is there a preference for several smaller withdrawals, right? So it's a concept of fiscal responsibility, which I know that for now the Interest Budget Committee is thinking about, but I think we, as in a constitution sense, we should be a little bit less flexible on this and start thinking about this usage and rules. For example, other topics I was thinking, are we going to make investments as a treasury, right? Are we going to have a return on investments? For example, conversions, like I mentioned before, and some topics on circulation, right? Do we prefer vendors that are going to hold data members of the community that we know they're going to keep data? What is the portion of it, right? Or do we prefer vendors that are completely outside of the community and are just going to sell the industry away? I know it's not just an AOP situation, but those are things that we need to start thinking. And I would be okay if the Constitution at least kind of makes a point about some of these topics. Also, I want to agree with what you said about including the net limit on the body. I think the bar is too long and it has too complex to not include in that. And also, I think it would be interesting to talk about governance participation for the treasury tools.
Thank you. So I'm Martin, I'm delegate from Bulgaria. I just want to say that the point for the amendment, I think it needs to be included into Article 4. I know that it's included in the guardrails, but maybe it wants the reference to the guardrails. Thank you. Thank you, Martin. Who has a private mention with there?
Antonio from here, Brazil. I would like to talk with, again, the talk of my friend from Vietnam. You know, we would like to make a suggestion about the other fluctuation. When the budget is approved, probably the governance makes a conversion to a stable coin. And you can get the real value, the basis, because now we are at good moments in the market, but the crypto market is so strange. But my idea is on another blockchain governance now are paying in stable coins in the moments of the approval of a budget or a range. It's a suggestion.
Thank you for your feedback. Yeah, right here in front. You will correct it for the Myers and scratch the AL. That's correct.
Thanks, Lloyd. Zach from Fort Myers. I just have a problem with the last sentence in section 1. I think we should remove the words from time to time. They're just very ambiguous and they don't really mean anything. So that was my feedback.
Thank you, Zach. See if Joel has any commentary on the from time to time language that he's added. Not right now. Okay. Actually, already, but got to look for other hands. If there's any other voices that have not been heard, okay.
I'm Mark from London here. Similar points, but just in section 1, we say the Cardano blockchain budget, so we make it sound like there is only one, and just on what one of the friends over there said, it makes it sound a lot more centralised. We could just change that tone to remove that vibe, and at least allow a decentralised focus in this budget.
All right, thank you for your feedback. We have additional, we have another new hand here. We've got Kim. I'll show you guys Kim.
All right, Mr. Chairman, budget stuff. So,
Second the time.
So if my understanding is correct, a budget is in place at that point. It's possible to do specific governance action for treasury withdrawals. There's nothing to say that we couldn't do something. I think we might have phrased it a budget amendment, so something that is a complete budget, but does go through the info action process and gains sufficient consent, thus is eligible, right, pursuant to an approved budget for that governance action that does withdraw from the treasury. So my question specifically is, should we, when we're delineating a Cardano budget, should we put in subsequent amendments? Sure that follows the same process. And I think there's maybe a dependency. I think this probably implicates Article 3, Section 4. So the text was added, info action, info action may also be used to seek approval for proposed Cardano blockchain budgets in Cardano blockchain treasury withdrawals. So I think maybe what this is trying to get at, maybe the intent here is it's talking about an amendment, like a budget amendment. But this seems like a vulnerability right here because we're saying info action may be used to seek approval for a Cardano blockchain treasury withdrawal. So I think that might clear that up.
Thank you, Ken. Have I recognized you on this topic already? I have. Just receive additional hand in the back. If I recognize you as well, William, already recognized on the topic. All right, so what I'd like to do, since we recognize everyone has asked to speak at this point, I'd like to ask the secretary to, let's see if we can get a summary on what we've uncovered up to this point.
So the three items I have for bubbling out of that is we may want a consensus decision on whether we keep operations, the budget section. A request that we include then that change limit more explicitly. But we do want to point out that it is already mentioned in Article 4, Section 3. 1 second, I'll confirm. Yes, so Article 4, Section 3 does already discuss the net change limit, so please re-review that. And the request to remove it from time to time. Okay, then we're gonna do one clarification on the last comment from Ken.
Okay, I'll acknowledge Joel for the clarification.
Let me address Ken's and then back to the others, if that's okay. So the budget process is, as we talked about yesterday, I think our long-term goal and intent is to implement a different governance action, for budgets and treasury withdrawals. So we're using the uniform action process now because that requires the protocol that's post-constitution. So right now, the way the budget and treasury withdrawal process works is that you propose a budget for withdrawal through veto action. But then the Constitution Committee, unlike other legal actions, is making a determination of constitutionality. In the case of the budget, they are determining that if that budget were to be implemented as proposed, it would be constitutional. Or in the case of the treasury withdrawal, they're determining if that treasury withdrawal were to be made as proposed, it is one in accordance with a budget that is in existence, and two, as a result, that withdrawal itself would be constitutional. And so that's the process that we cobbled together for now in order for us to use legal actions for budgets and treasury withdrawals until we have a permanent fix. And so there's a distinction between the process of proposing something, because it is an equal action to propose a budget and treasury withdrawal, which requires the simple majority of 1% of the US to move it towards neutral action. And then the second step is a constitutional making a determination that if the budget or if the treasury withdrawal were to be made, it would either be constitutional or non-constitutional. And so that you have to look at the two arguments together. And for now, that's how we solve the problem. Now, there may still be an improved language, of course, but that was the basic intent of how it is to work. As to the other points, again, the intention was that we could have multiple budgets, that we could have budgets for different periods of time, and certainly if you feel that that language needs to be clarified, there's no reason that cannot be done.
Thank you, Joel. All right, let's see, again, I'm looking to new whole, okay, I haven't heard from Bastion yet today, so let's give Bastion an opportunity. I haven't heard from him yet.
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate what some of my colleagues already talked about, it, but it was not considered right now, which is that we should maybe prohibit the institution that receives the annual budget to be able to vote with the budget, and maybe even that they are not able to delegate to state people as well.
So, at this point, we have an option. I think it may be best to 24 minutes until lunch. So we want to be productive with our time. So if we can bring this conversation to a close for now, and we can move to we have two options. We can move to a vote On these a temperature check. There we go. Thank you, Jessica. A temperature check on the items that are suggested here, where we can begin the discussion on the definitions to gain additional information and do a more concise temperature check in the afternoon. Temperature check on the budget. Put your paddles up and say we'll do temperature checks on the budget. Nairobi, if you don't mind putting your paddles up to tell me if you'd like to do temperature checks on the budget. Temperature checks on the items that Danielle's just provided. We'll read those potential changes and we'll do a temperature check and see if those are inclusive of those changes. So if you'd like to do those temperature checks now, let's put up your paddle and we'll see who wants to do temperature checks now.
I get one with thermometer stuck up my ass.
We're temperature check. This is just like an announcement of yesterday.
It can be sort of typed out or something and put on a slide.